If people are having a good time and they smile, they're more open to learning. That's science.
Today's interview is with Michael Hoffman. Why? Because he's masterful with people and a joy to be around. Once you hang around Michael, you get jazzed. He's got this mob style / Sesame Street effervescent attitude that's just super fun and makes you happy. The reason I've selected him is because he's done thousands of interviews, both on and off stage, and he's going to help us with our interviews, with transitions, with follow-up questions, and how to make sure to support our interviewee so they can do their best interview. What I want you to look for is his facial expressions, his eyebrow raises, his head tilts, and his gestures, because that's where the money is. He doesn't talk about that, but you can see he does it so naturally. You could probably watch the interview without any audio and get a lot of value as well. Michael, he is a customer service and motivational sales and leadership speaker. He recently produced Voices of Experience, which is the National Speakers Association audio magazine with a lot of experts talking about their field that you can learn from. Meet Michael.
Mm-hmm. What kind of prep do you do? And give us some scenarios.
Well, actually, the prep that I do for the interviews is who do we want on. Usually we try to have a theme for that particular, either whether it's a month or a project, and that helps kind of whittle down the myriad of people that you can talk to. So it's about their subject matter expertise and who do I think has something valuable to share with the audience that I'm particularly interviewing for. So that's really where the prep comes in. As far as what I want them to say, that's sort of, we develop that as we go, especially right before the interview, and maybe a conversation beforehand, but more on the fly. So it's my preparation for the interview is what I want to ask, but who do I want to talk to and why?
As long as you have that right person, you will get that information.
Hopefully, not just because they're a subject matter expert doesn't mean they know how to talk about it succinctly. And I mean, I'm a rambler. I mean, good luck with you. You wrangle that guy in.
But it seems like you don't have any fear of, hey, just get the person and I will get that information. You have a lot of confidence with that. That's inspiring.
I think so.
That's inspiring. I like to be prepared. What kind of preparation gives you that confidence?
Oh, well, that's an excellent question.
Or experience.
I think I'm a really good listener, and I go into the interview with goals. So, for instance, one of the things we do to get ready and to help the interviewee get ready is to give them a little heads up as to why I chose them for the topic, and I'm going to ask them, what 3 things do you think the audience needs to know from this particular area we're going to talk about? And the reason why I do that type of get them to start thinking about it is because it's kind of like asking for somebody for a referral. If I sit down with you and go, hey, do you have anybody that you would want to know, that would want to hear about this? You've asked them to think about their entire life, and they'll usually say no. But if I say, is there anybody on your bowling league that would want to hear about this? All of a sudden I've narrowed their focus, and that's what that little bit of prep does. So see, there are things that I do to prep. I didn't even know.
Oh, good.
It's not just on the fly. It just looks like it.
Do you have let's say you have a difficult person to interview in terms of they're not a speaker and they're kind of quiet. Do you have a couple of questions that really get them to open up?
I think that's one of your biggest gifts that you bring as an interviewee or interviewer is that your goal is to help them feel as comfortable as possible. I mean, if you think about it, it's not easy to sit with a bunch of microphones and cameras in your face and then pretend they're not there.
We love it.
I know, but you've done it a lot, so you get comfortable. You don't see it anymore. Well, not everybody's had that experience, so you can have the smartest person in the world, and you put a camera in front of their face, and they just lock right up. So, I think one of the greatest gifts you bring as an interviewer is to help somebody feel comfortable and to relax and to enjoy the experience. And one of the keys is have a good follow-up question. Like, for instance, if I have somebody that's not sharing stories, or they're not giving an example, or they're giving 1 to 2 word answers. So what's I have a phrase, the secret is in the follow-up question. So I may ask a good question, and they give me a 2-word answer. And I may go, tell me about that.
And what you can't see is the handhold. It's on the wrist. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if it's okay, I mean, you brought the circle in, so I feel I can do that. But that's the follow-up question: is tell me about that, or do you have an example of that? So tell me about that, and do you have an example or some of my favorite follow-up questions? Because the interview is about them. It's not about you. And if you find yourself doing most of the talking, you're doing it wrong, because it's really not about you. That's one of the biggest mistakes most interviewers make, is they get their person talking and then they interject and throw in their own stuff. Your job is to get them going and then get out of the way. And so that follow-up question, tell me about that. Do you have an example of that? My other favorite one is, what else?
Oh.
I love that question. So what else? What else do I need to know?
And notice his facial expressions. What else? So the head tilt and the eyebrows.
Yeah.
I want to work on that in the
All
mirror.
the near-linguistic stuff, yeah.
Oh, that's
So tell me
nice.
about that. Or, that was awesome. What else do you have? Do you have another example of that? Tell me about that. Ooh, the trifecta. Nice.
Nice. What about mistakes? You had talked about mistakes. What are some mistakes that you see quite a bit?
Well, I love mistakes. I think the joy is in the mistakes.
All right.
I do. I think the good stuff's in the mistakes, People want to connect with people. I appreciate the information, but and it's really great, but people will listen to lengthy informations because they like the person they're listening to. They have a connection with the person they're listening to. That only comes from stories, or it comes from flaws. Some of my favorite and I think most effective interviews came when we made a mistake and we're just cracking up. And they kept saying, you're going to cut this out, you're going to cut this out. I'm going, oh yeah, this is being cut out. Are you kidding? That's gold. I'll give you an example. A real good friend of mine, we were talking, and she was very nervous, which is really amazing because she's a professional speaker and she's done this for her whole life. And so we were talking, very, very nervous. And one of the things
You're talking about me.
Jolene Jang. Didn't want to give it away. But she had said something like, in the very beginning of her presentation, she was coming across real strong and, real nervous, strong, like have a face. And then she had said something about talking about her success, and she had said, one of my favorite sexes. And I went, really? And she starts laughing. She goes, no, cut that out. I go, yeah. No, this is, now we're getting good. and we left that little piece. It wasn't enough to embarrass her at all, but it was a moment of human connection that we all laughed at, and actually what it did was it endeared the audience to her. Yeah. And it was one of my favorite interviews. I love mistakes. I love that's gold, man.
That is so motivating and empowering. And
Does that encourage you?
I'm going to embrace
because I'm terrible at this. Awesome, you're going to be great. Yeah.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah. I got lots of examples of mistakes. Things I've done, things they've done, lots of mistakes.
What's a mistake that you realize, oh, that's actually not a mistake. I love that you did. Yeah, I know it's hard.
I know.
When did you make a mistake, Hoffman?
No, I just got to whittle it down. Well, mistakes that I've loved that were great.
Or that you actually would like to repeat because you liked what had happened because it shed some light, it showed you had some flaws to make them feel more comfortable?
Yeah, without being repeating, because I think I would just repeat it, and that was when we're in situations where, if I'm a little clumsy in the beginning, like I remember when I first got started with VOE, Voices of Experience, and started doing my first interviews, I was starstruck. These are all my heroes. And for some reason, I got a chance to have an excuse to get in front of them. Yeah. So I picked all my favorite people. I don't care what you talk about. I really don't. I don't even care we use this.
We're recording
I know. I really just don't care. I just wanted to spend 5 minutes with you, in a conversation where we're this close. Yeah. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. And I got a little tongue-tied. So I don't know if I would want to repeat this. However, it's just me, and that was I'm terrible at names. I'm absolutely terrible at names. And I remember an interview where I am doing. I'm talking with one of my favorite people in the world, Lou Heckler. Mm-hmm. And I was starstruck by this guy because he's one of my favorite storytellers. I would go out of my way to watch Lou, and I'm actually quite starstruck by him. So. And we've talked before. It's not like we've never met. So I'm interviewing him. I called him Lou Holtz for the entire interview. The famous coach. I called Lou Holtz. I called him Lou Holtz. He never corrected me. Not once. Not one time did he correct me. And so at the very end, and he's such a gracious guy. So he just went on with the interview, and he's just a gracious man. And at the very end, I had a friend come up to me and go, you know that's Lou Heckler, right? And I said, yeah, I know. He goes, well, you're calling him Lou Holtz. No. Oh, the blood rushed from the top of my head. I'm going, oh my gosh. Yeah, Lou did. He was very gracious, but it took a while for him to talk to me again.
No, it
Yeah,
didn't.
it did. I don't. The only thing I learned from that was, well, and I'm kind of glad I did. I'm glad it happened in the beginning because it's tremendously important to know who you're talking to, not just their name, but what they do and what they're known for. And if you don't do your homework for the people that are sitting in front of you, there's the tip right there. That's the gold. that it's going to show. It's going to show. And even though mine was kind of led on by being starstruck, it's still the same thing. You know, you've got to be ready and know your stuff before you get in front of these people, because they could be doing a million other things, but they gave their time to you.
What tips do you have people who are starting to do interviews? And I want 2 tips, just in general, because 2 tips will make a big deal difference.
Excellent. Only 2. Well, I've got the big ones are know what you're trying to create. Like for instance, I wanted a 5 to 7 minute interview, so I've got to be pithy as possible. It goes by super fast. So I'm going to create something between 5 and 7 minutes. I want 3 pieces of information in that 5 to 7 minutes. So I'm going to help them prep for 3 items to talk about. I'm going to tell them ahead of time I'm going to interrupt, that once I have it and I think I've got what I need, I will stop them, because my form of editing, or my form of a program is, it's not all the way through. I'm going to edit it up. So I'll interview for 20 minutes and I'll look for the 7. That's my approach. So because most of my interview style is sort of on the cuff, tell me about this. But ahead of time, and maybe here's the tip, is know what you're trying to create. And when before you interview them, let them know, I'm looking for these 3 things. And we'll talk about them before we get started. So what 3 things would you want to share? And as they're talking about it, I'm going to write them down in front of me. So I'll help them get there.
Yes.
I'll help them get there. So so to transition, I may say something like, that's fantastic. I love that idea. I might even repeat the idea just to make sure I got the idea and they got what they wanted to get across. Now tell me about this. Or I'll pretend like we had a conversation before the interview started. I said, you know, when we were talking before, you had mentioned the car trip.
Yes.
And how your daughter was lost out the window because her brother didn't roll it up and he actually threw her out the window. Tell me about that story. And so I'll do transitions, which is a horrible idea. I don't know why that came to my head. Remember when your son threw your daughter out the window? That's so hilarious. Tell me about that. So help them with the transitions.
Transitions.
Because I know what they're trying to hit. Boom, 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 boom. They've got 3 ideas. I'm going to help them hit those ideas.
Can you give us another transition or 2? Because I need that.
Anything that you can do to help connect it. Or and so here's the 1-2 punch. I call it the 1-2 punch. The 2 techniques. The first technique is to check for understanding. So it gives me a chance to get in and to control the conversation. So if I were to say, so what you're saying, Jolene, is, and I'm going to repeat what you just said to make sure I got it. I'm checking for understanding.
Check for understanding.
Check for understanding, and then do a procedural suggestion. So I may say something like, how about if we talk about, or so that's a procedural suggestion. Or let's shift gears a little bit. You had mentioned.
Let's shift gears, and he does the head nod and the turn.
You're really into the neurolinguistic stuff. That's awesome, the body language. Yeah, but that's the 1-2 punch. It works very effectively, is you interrupt by checking for understanding. So now I have control of the floor, which is, and they don't even know it, but I've controlled the conversation. And then I'm going to shift gears by throwing in a suggestion. I would love for you to expand on, this particular idea. And they don't know they're being controlled, but it's moving the conversation where I need it.
And I see you're quantifying numbers, 3 to 5, whatever it was, 5 to 7 minutes, and then 3 items.
In my head, I know what the end goal is going to be, so I'm listening for that. And if there was one big tip I could give you guys, and that is, in your interview, be very present. I mean, you must be very present. If you're thinking about what you're going to do next, what you're going to say next, you didn't do your prep. You have to be very present, because the goal, and I think you're listening for your audience. So you have to pay attention to for your audience, because if you get it and if you get excited about what they're talking about, your audience is going to do the same thing. So by being present and listening to what they're saying, you're going to be able to respond properly. You're going to be able to interject when they're going off course more effectively, because I know that this tangent is not gonna serve you as an interviewee. So my job as the interviewer is to very smoothly come in and help you get back on track. So I'll use the 1-2 punch. If they're going down a rabbit hole, I may say something like, so what you're saying is that particular story is blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? I like that story, but I would love for you to expand on this particular idea. And it gets them back on track without being...
I just saw what he did. Sorry.
You should talk about this, because I see and hear what you're saying. That's too much.
When they're going, let's say you're talking to a speaker and they're going through and they're giving you their signature story, but you want this, how do you interrupt? Because there is no pause. There is no pause unless you're talking to Lou.
That's very common. Yes, and then he puts it on purpose, and you wait for those. No, you just sit back and go Lou, just go.
How do you interrupt? Do you do just a moment? I mean, how do you do that?
You do well. You set it up ahead of time. I always tell all my interviewers that
I'm going to interrupt.
I absolutely. Listen, I know your time is valuable, and we have X amount of time to do this. And I will tell you what. Here's the way it's going to work. If it's going down an area that I think we've either already covered or might not serve you for what you're trying to accomplish, I'm going to interrupt. I'll try to do it as smoothly as possible, but don't be offended first of all, and just go with it. That's always it's always a setup, so that they know what's going on. And everybody wants a good interview. Everybody wants to be successful. You're not going to get any pushback. I've never had someone go, well, once I start my story, you have to let me finish, because you're never going to get pushback.
Yeah.
So they usually go with you. But I set it up ahead of time.
Good, great. I'm excited, and I want to take notes, but I'll have to just watch, and then we'll have some notes.
Watch it again.
And then watch all the things that I've improved, Hoffman. Where can we find all of your properties? Your online
IgnitingPerformance.com.
And all your funny, hilarious videos you've got to see.
Yeah, go to YouTube. We have on our Facebook page or our YouTube page, IgnitingPerformance.com. We've got all the videos, all the fun videos there. We have a project called Cup of Hoff that is motivation, inspiration, teacup training once a week. Because you always, whenever somebody has you come and speak, they always say, Jolene, I want Jolene every morning. Yes. I would love to have a little bit of Jolene. Give me that energy every morning.
Yeah.
Well, this is the answer to that.
Cup of Hoff.
Cup of Hoff every week. Gotta have it.
Oh!
Whoa.
Thank you.
Whoa, you bet.